I recently came across a clip from May of 2015, so it's a few months old, but it reflects a lot of information, misinformation that is going around about Israel and Palestinian Christians. It was from Dina Takrui, and it was on Al Jazeera Plus, which bills itself as a global news community for the connected generation. We highlight human struggles and achievements, empower impassioned voices, and challenge the status quo. Well, how about challenging the status quo with truth? Listen to what she has to say.
Jesus Christ was from Palestine. You know, the birthplace of Christianity. Here's what you should know about Palestine's Christian population. They've always been an essential part of the fabric of Palestinian society and the collective struggle against Israel's occupation. But the numbers of Palestinian Christians have drastically dwindled. Take Bethlehem, for example, the city of Jesus' birth. In 1947, the year before Israel became a state, 85% of the city's population was Christian. Today, it's less than 20%. In Jerusalem, the Christian population in 1947 was 19%. Now, it's 2%. In fact, today, Christians make up only about 2% of the population of the occupied West Bank and less than 1% of the Gaza Strip. So, why have the numbers of Christian Palestinians decreased so much? The simple answer? The occupation.
All right, there are a bunch of things that jump out. I made a list here because it's a lot. First, Palestine is not the birthplace of Christianity, and Jesus is not from Palestine. Of course, Jesus was not a Palestinian. There was no such thing as Palestine at that time. You had Judea. You had the towns in Galilee. These were Jewish inhabited. This was where the people of Israel lived predominantly, and Jerusalem was their central city. This was a Jewish place. Why not say that, quote, Christianity grew up on Jewish soil? Why not remind everyone that Jesus was a Jew named Yeshua and his mother's name was Miriam? Why not say there was no such thing as Palestine until over 100 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus, when a Roman Empire renamed the region Palestine to mock the Jewish people whom he had defeated in war? Why not tell the truth? Why have to put a myth in to support your narrative? That tells me right off the bat something is sadly wrong. And then why is it that the population has dropped off of Palestinian Christians? The problem is Islam. The problem is Islam. Why is the percentage of Christians so low in the West Bank now? Who governs the West Bank? The Palestinian Authority, Muslims. Is it Israel's fault that the Christian population of Gaza Strip is so tiny now, when Gaza Strip is governed by Hamas and run by Hamas? And hear me, the Muslim population of the so-called West Bank and Gaza Strip has grown exponentially under the so-called occupation. The reason that the Christian population is shrinking is because of radical Islam. Here's an article, December 28th, 2009, Daniel Schwamenthal, Wall Street Journal. The forgotten Palestinian refugees, even in Bethlehem, Palestinian Christians are suffering under Muslim intolerance. Trace it back. Look at what happens when the Palestinian Authority takes over Bethlehem. Look at what happens to the Christian population. Why doesn't the Christian population speak out more about it? Because they'll lose their lives if they do. Here's an article you may have missed, September 28th, 2015, Jordan Schachtel on Breitbart.com. Islamic extremists set fire to the St. Charbel Monastery in Bethlehem over the weekend, and Christian leaders in Bethlehem, a Palestinian Authority-governed area of the West Bank, have demanded that the Palestinian government do more to prosecute the criminals responsible for the reported arson attack. This is the same problem Christians are having in Syria and Iraq. They are facing persecution from Islam. That is the menacing elephant in the room. It's not the, quote, evil occupation, because if you go over to the areas that are controlled by the state of Israel, Christians have total liberty and total freedom there. The Christian Palestinians can do as they please there. They can worship in their churches. They can say their prayers. They can do what they want. And they're protected by the government. Come on. This is the ultimate spin, blaming the opposite of the enemy for the real problem. But there's more that she has to say. Listen to this.
Israel's illegal military occupation of Palestinian lands has meant daily hardships for all Palestinians, including Christians. We're talking restrictions in movement, limited access to water and electricity, and a beleaguered economy. In and around Bethlehem, for instance, Israel has imposed some 32 checkpoints, roadblocks, dirt mounds, and gates that limit how Palestinians can move around the city. On top of that, Christian and Muslim Palestinians alike are denied access to worship at their holy sites in Jerusalem's Old City. That's because Israel forbids Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza from even entering Jerusalem unless they get a difficult-to-obtain permit.
Okay, what's the reason for all the restrictions? First question is it Christians who are being singled out? No, quite the contrary. Christians are the victims here. Who's being singled out? Islamic terrorists. If the Palestinian Authority did not incite terror against Israel, if they did not make into martyrs those who kill Israeli women, children, and men in cold blood, if Hamas did not have as its sworn goal to annihilate Israel and to drive the Jewish people out of the land, you would not have all these restrictions. Why are there all these checkpoints? To keep the terrorists out. Why did Israel build a security fence? It's actually a security fence. 97% is fence, 3% wall, yet it's wrongly called an apartheid wall. And why did they build the wall in certain places? They built the fence and the wall to keep the terrorists out. They built the wall in certain places to keep snipers out. If the Palestinian Authority did a better job of policing terrorists and not inspiring and inciting terrorists, you wouldn't have these restrictions. That then hurt the Christians. Who is the culprit here? It is none other than radical Islam, often aided and abetted by the Palestinian Authority and certainly aided and abetted by Hamas. Do not blame the so-called occupation. If Israel ruled the land, if Israel ruled Gaza Strip and West Bank and all of its current territory of Israel, if Israel did that without the constant attack and the constant threat of terror and murdering their children, murdering their wives, murdering their men, if not for that, Christians would have more liberty than they have ever had in the so-called Holy Land, the land of Israel, the land of the Jewish people, the land of Jesus, the Jew. Let's set the record straight.